In 2009, two people sent digital money to each other. There was no bank, no government, no permission needed. At the time, almost nobody noticed. But today, that single moment is seen as the birth of a completely new financial system. One that has created trillion-dollar markets, sparked global debates, and challenged the very idea of how money works. This is the story of the first Bitcoin transaction, and how that one simple action led us all the way to here. To really understand why Bitcoin mattered so much, you have to look at the world it was born into. The year was 2009. The global financial system was in chaos, still reeling from the 2008 crash. Banks were collapsing left and right. Governments were scrambling to bail them out with taxpayer money, creating a massive wave of public anger and distrust. Trust in our financial institutions was at an all-time low. And in the middle of all this chaos, people started asking a dangerous revolutionary question. What if money didn't need banks at all? What if there was a different way? It turns out, someone, an individual or group who remains anonymous to this day, had been thinking about this very question for years. They were about to offer a radical solution. In late 2008, a document called a white paper appeared on a niche online forum for cryptography enthusiasts. It was titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and it was written by someone named Satoshi Nakamoto, a name nobody has ever been able to definitively link to a real person. The paper was brilliant, elegant, and proposed something that sounded like science fiction. It described a new kind of money, peer-to-peer electronic cash system where transactions happen directly between users, with no central authority like a bank or a government to approve them. There would be no single point of failure that could be shut down. Every single transaction would be recorded on a public ledger, called a blockchain, that anyone could inspect and verify for themselves. This wasn't just a proposal for a new currency. It was a proposal for a new kind of trust, one based on mathematics and code, not on fallible institutions. The theory was one thing, but would it actually work in practice? The world found out on January 12, 2009. On that day, Satoshi Nakamoto sent 10 bitcoins to a computer scientist and early digital privacy advocate named Hal Finney. This was the first ever Bitcoin transaction between two separate people, recorded forever on block 170 of the Bitcoin blockchain. At that exact moment, Bitcoin had no price. It wasn't listed on any exchanges. It had zero real-world use or value. Couldn't buy anything with it. Transaction was simply a test, a proof of concept. It was proof that Satoshi's system worked, that two people could, in fact, send value to each other across the internet without a middleman. It seemed like a small, technical milestone, but it was the start of everything. For over a year, Bitcoin remained a fascination for a small group of programmers and tech enthusiasts. It was an interesting project, but it wasn't yet money. That changed on May 22, 2010. A programmer in Florida named Laszlo Hanyecz went on a forum and made an unusual offer. He wanted to buy 2 pizzas, and he was willing to pay 10,000 bitcoins for them. Someone in the UK took him up on the offer, ordered the pizzas from a local shop near Laszlo, and had them delivered to his door. Laszlo got his dinner, and the other person got 10,000 bitcoins. At the time, those coins were worth maybe $40. Today, those 2 pizzas are known as the most expensive pizzas in history. At Bitcoin's peak price, that 10,000 coin payment was worth over $600 million. Well, this wasn't just a funny story. It was the first time Bitcoin was used to buy a real-world good. It was the moment a digital token became real money. From that point on, Bitcoin's journey was a roller coaster. Over the next decade, it went through wild, unpredictable phases. First came the early adopters, programmers, cryptographers, and libertarians who were drawn to its decentralized ideals. Then, its anonymity attracted a darker element, and it became infamous as the currency of choice on darknet markets like the Silk Road, which tarnished its reputation. The media was fascinated and horrified. They declared Bitcoin dead hundreds of times over the years, yet it just refused to disappear. Instead, it experienced massive price booms, where its value would skyrocket, followed by brutal, gut-wrenching crashes, where it would lose 80% of its value or more. But with each one of these cycles, something interesting happened. Each boom brought in more attention, more users, and more developers. Each crash shook out the speculators, but the core believers stayed and kept building. Slowly but surely, Bitcoin was gaining legitimacy. Then, around the late 2010s, the most unexpected thing happened. The very institutions that Bitcoin was designed to bypass started getting involved. The rebels in suits on Wall Street took notice. Hedge funds and investment managers started cautiously buying it as a speculative asset. Publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy and Tesla began adding Bitcoin to their corporate balance sheets, treating it like digital gold. Even major banks who had once dismissed it started offering crypto trading and custody services to their wealthy clients. Governments, which had been hostile or dismissive, began researching their own central bank digital currencies, partly in response to the challenge posed by Bitcoin. In just over a decade, Bitcoin had gone from a fringe rebellion to a globally recognized asset class, sitting alongside stocks, bonds, and gold in the portfolios of serious investors. Of course, Bitcoin's rise has not been without intense controversy and criticism. The debate around it is fierce and far from settled. Critics rightfully point to its extreme price volatility, which makes it difficult to use as a day-to-day currency. They raise serious environmental concerns about the massive amount of electricity consumed by Bitcoin mining. Its use in illegal activities and ransomware attacks remains a major problem. The lack of regulation makes it a risky playground for unsophisticated investors. But its supporters have powerful counterarguments. They argue that its true value lies in the fact that it's censorship-resistant. No government or bank can stop a transaction. It's borderless, allowing for the transfer of value anywhere in the world instantly. It is provably scarce by design. The code dictates that only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist. It's making it a potential hedge against inflation and the endless money printing of central banks. So where does that leave us today? Bitcoin is in a strange, fascinating place. It's legal tender in countries like El Salvador. It's effectively banned in others, like China. It is traded 24/7 on exchanges all over the world. It's owned by millions of everyday individuals, by massive financial institutions, and even by governments. And as for its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, they are still gone. Their estimated 1 million Bitcoins have never been moved. Their identity has never been revealed. This ultimate mystery only adds to the legend of Bitcoin and its origins. Looking back, that tiny, seemingly insignificant transaction in 2009 didn't just create Bitcoin, it unleashed a tidal wave of innovation. It proved the concept of the blockchain, the technology that underpins all of crypto. It paved the way for thousands of other cryptocurrencies, for decentralized finance or DeFi, for NFTs, and for entire new industries that are still being built today. Whether Bitcoin ultimately succeeds in becoming the global money of the future, or whether it fails and is remembered as a fascinating footnote in history, one thing is now undeniable. It permanently changed the way humanity thinks about money, trust, and value. So here is the real question I want to leave you with. Was the birth of Bitcoin the first step towards the future of money? Or was it simply the most ambitious financial experiment ever attempted? I'd love to hear your take. Drop it in the comments below, and be sure to follow for more stories about the quiet moments in history that ended up changing everything. Thanks for watching.